Daughter took DNA test and it came back negative, so I took revenge for all the years I've been lied to. I am a 51-year-old man married to a 44-year-old woman. We have a wonderful daughter who would be turning 16 soon. By soon, I mean in a few weeks. We were all super excited about it until there was something that ruined my beautiful family, as the truth came crashing down on us. Well, mostly on me and Molly. Me and my wife, Audrey, have been married for 26 years. After a lot of attempts at having kids, we were finally blessed with a baby girl whom we named Molly. She was the apple of our eye and the most beautiful blessing from God. Molly brought immense joy and fulfillment to our lives, filling our home with laughter and love. We cherished every moment spent with her, grateful for the precious gift of parenthood that we had longed for. Anyway, this post is not about our happy family or about Molly, my daughter. It's about the betrayal of my wife. My daughter had taken a DNA test and found out that I am not her biological father. This led to a lot of back and forth between me and my wife. I got to know about the cheating nature of my wife, who had put me in the blind for almost the entire marriage. I would not let this go so easily, so I decided to get my revenge. This is how I went about getting it. I met Audrey when I was 22 at an event that was being hosted for upcoming entrepreneurs. She was one of the volunteers who were responsible for making sure that everyone was seated before the presentation started. She mistook me for one of the speakers and took me to the VIP section. I was taken aback and tried to explain to her that I was not one of the presenters. She winked at me and walked away. I understood that it was not a mistake, but a genuine interest that she showed in me. I smiled back and took a seat in the VIP area. She slid me a tissue with her number on it, and we bumped each other after she got off work. It was a one-time thing, and I forgot about it after a while. When I was doing my laundry, I found the tissue with Audrey's number on it and hit her up. I had nothing much going on, so I could do away with blowing some steam off. We started seeing each other often and grew physically attracted to each other. We would meet each other quite often, and oh boy, the sex was getting better and better. At that time, she was working for a fashion magazine. She had odd working hours, and she met a lot of models for interviews. I never expected that things between us would get anything serious. It was just a fling that we both were enjoying. Things took a drastic turn one day when she said that we should start thinking of a serious relationship. I was only 25 and was not financially ready to tie the knot. I argued that we were too young and should focus on our careers. I was just getting started with my business and was not ready for added responsibilities. She assured me that we both could work and save enough to buy a house and secure our future. Till today, I have no idea what she saw in me and why she ever wanted to get married to me. I know that I look like a decent and gullible guy who would trust you without asking questions. So maybe that was the reason. After further discussions, we decided to get married. We had a very simple wedding with close friends and family. Our marriage was like how they show it in the movies. Great sex, great support, and great conversations. Everything was going great for almost 2 years. We were very keen on starting a family as we had been financially stable for quite a while now. We had been trying to get pregnant for almost a year. However, despite our efforts, we were unable to conceive. This unexpected turn of events started to put a strain on our relationship, and we began to have a lot of arguments about it, even blaming each other for not giving their 100%. Things were not as smooth between us as it had previously been. My wife started working late hours at her magazine company and spending less and less time at home. The times she was home, we had very little interactions and tried to avoid conversations which would lead to conflicts. I knew that we were drifting apart, and this was not how I wanted to deal with difficult times. I decided that Audrey and I had to sit and talk it out to come to a conclusion. We did get that much needed time during Thanksgiving to spend time with each other and find a solution. We decided that we would try and seek medical help to know the reason for not being able to have a baby. After the doctor's visit, we were both filled with positivity and decided to do everything that we possibly could to help us get through with having a baby. Despite all my attempts to remind Audrey that she needs to slow down with her work, she did not pay any heed to it. She was still working overtime and on a lot of projects at the same time. This was a constant argument between us. She said that she would do 2 last projects and then focus on having a baby. I did put myself in her shoes and thought that it would be good to give her a break. So she now was not only coming late, but at times staying back at the office more often than not. I tried to talk to her about it, but she said that it was easier to stay and complete her work than traveling to and from work. It was not something I was a fan of, but there was not much I could say or do, so I just let it be. One day I saw that one of her colleagues was dropping her off at 3 in the morning. I was not so narrow-minded to question this, but what I saw raised an eyebrow. He gave her a peck on her cheek as he left. This was very unusual for someone who was just a colleague. I immediately asked Audrey about it, and she said that it was nothing that I had to worry about, it was just a peck, and that I was taking it too far. She said that it was a common thing in the fashion industry, and I was reading too much into it. I asked her if she would be okay with being so close to another female, and she said she did not mind. She knew me too well to suspect that there was something going on. This made me feel ashamed for doubting her. I thought that I should do something to make up for it. So I planned a weekend getaway as a surprise so that I could apologize for my actions. On Friday, I asked her to come home early as there was something I wanted to talk to her about. When I broke the news about a weekend away in tranquility, she was not very pleased. Well, this was not the reaction that I was looking for. It made me confused as to why she would not be happy spending a weekend with me. I mean, lately we were spending less and less time together. This would be a perfect opportunity to catch up. I asked her up front if there was something wrong. She said that there was nothing wrong, but she was planning to get the house cleaned over the weekend. I was even more confused. We could always do that the next weekend. Anyway, we left for the resort that I had booked. I could sense Audrey being distant and always on her phone the entire time. It could not be just the cleaning that was bothering her. Maybe it was something else that she wasn't sharing with me. When she went to take a shower, I saw messages from one of my colleagues constantly popping up on her phone. I tried to ignore it, but it kept distracting me, so I thought that I would just let them know that she is busy. As I looked at the messages, one particular message piqued my interest. It read, "Baby, how long do I have to stay away from you? We had plans this weekend and you ditched me." That's interesting. I checked the name, which read Tiffany. I was not aware of Tiffany working with Audrey. When Audrey was out of the shower, I told her that Tiffany messaged her and she froze. I told her that why did she not mention her plans, for which she said that Tiffany was someone new and had no friends or family to spend time with, so Audrey suggested to spend time with her. I was a little skeptical about it, but I never had a reason to doubt Audrey. She never lied to me, and I knew she always wanted to help people out. I asked her to invite Tiffany for lunch or dinner so that she feels less lonely. She gave me a very meek response and never spoke about Tiffany ever. I noticed that after the Tiffany episode, Audrey had been spending more time at home and trying to initiate conversations with me. I was happy that we were slowly getting on track with our relationship. Things were getting better and the bedroom was getting spicier, just like old times. I was really happy about it. This could lead to us focusing on starting a family. Audrey had started to focus more on family time with me, and we were going out more often than not and pouncing on every opportunity we got at lovemaking with the end goal of having a baby. I had no complaints from Audrey as her erratic work schedules had drastically reduced. They used to be one-off times when she would stay late after her usual work hours to finish something off. This was something that I could live with, as it was not a frequent occurrence. I didn't even want to pressurize her so much into having a baby that she is mentally burdened by it. After trying for almost 2 years, we finally received the good news when one morning, as per our ritual, my wife had a pregnancy test to check the results. We were ecstatic, and the feeling of soon-to-be parents was out of the world. We couldn't contain our joy as we eagerly anticipated the arrival of our little bundle of joy. The anticipation and excitement filled every moment of our lives, making each day more magical than the last. We would share books and videos with each other on how to go about the pregnancy. I tried to make myself available as much as possible for my wife during this time. My wife had taken a break from her work when she was 6 months pregnant, so that there were no complications during childbirth. The gender reveal party was something we were very excited about. We had our close friends and family gather at our house to share this news with them. Everyone was elated to know that we would be having a cute little girl with us very soon. After a long labor and a stressful 2 days of anticipation, our baby girl finally arrived in this world. When I first took her in my hands, I couldn't contain my tears. It was a moment of overwhelming joy and love as I held our precious daughter close to my chest. In that instant, I knew that our lives had changed forever, and that this little bundle of joy would bring us endless happiness. We named her Molly based on our favorite character. As she grew old, I could see that Molly had nothing similar to me. Though she looked a lot like a startling image of her mother, she missed the qualities and looks that she should have inherited from me. It did bother me, and I also felt a little sad about it, but I was just grateful that she gave me the joy of being her father. After Molly turned 5, Audrey resumed working for a magazine as a PR person. She was slowly getting back to her work, which she enjoyed the most, and I was very supportive to see her happy. As years went by, she became the lead PR manager. This led to her being too busy often. Molly would be turning 16 soon, and I wanted her mother to be there to give her the girl talk. It had been irking that Audrey had been quite defensive about her phone lately. She was working late, always carrying her phone around, even to the bathroom. I scoured the internet to find out the signs for a cheating partner, and Audrey had been ticking all of the boxes for it. I could see that Audrey was more involved in her job than focusing on Molly's transformation into a fine lady. Molly would pretty much do things by herself, and Audrey hardly showed or helped her with all the girl stuff. It did cause a bit of clashes between us regarding this. Molly was not so close to her mother as much as I tried to reason with her, regarding her mom being unavailable for her needs. She was growing into a rebellious teen, and Audrey's distant behavior was not helping with the situation. There had been lots of arguments between them, and my job was to diffuse the tension. I did try to sit and talk with Audrey about Molly, but she dismissed me, stating that all teens behaved this way growing up, and it was nothing to worry about. Molly had a growing suspicion that Audrey may not be her real mother, and that was the reason she did not pay much attention to her. I tried to show Molly all the proof of Audrey's pregnancy and all the pictures that we had taken during that time, but Molly was way too adamant that she believed that there was no way that Audrey could be her real mother. When Molly turned 16, she secretly conducted a DNA test to check if she was in fact our daughter. The results were shocking. It showed that her DNA had 0.001% match with mine. I knew what it meant. She showed me the results before she could reveal it to Audrey. I was dumbfounded, but deep down I knew somewhere that this was coming. I loved Audrey as my own daughter, and I would always do that no matter what a stupid piece of paper says about our relationship. I had my doubts, but I never let that waver my faith in Audrey. I mean, we did have a difficult time conceiving and having a baby. I don't think that Audrey would have done something like this to me. I had always believed in Audrey's loyalty and commitment to our relationship, especially considering the challenges we faced in trying to have a child together. Despite the shocking revelation of the results, I couldn't bring myself to doubt her intentions. However, a part of me couldn't help but wonder if there was more to the situation that I hadn't yet discovered. Molly was wailing after getting to know this truth. She was inconsolable. I could not see tears in Molly's eyes. I decided to not let this revelation hamper the relationship I shared with Molly. Molly was happy to have me as her father, and there was not a shred of doubt in her about me not being her father. She still loved me, and no matter what happens, I would always be her father. With Molly at my side, I knew that I could not just leave almost 2 decades of betrayal just like that. It was time for action. I had to formulate a plan to take revenge on my wife. I could not let it slide so easily after all that she had done. With Molly on my side, I knew I could achieve anything that I put my mind to. Molly, my trusted confidant and ally, had always been by my side through thick and thin. Together, we brainstormed ideas and devised a meticulous plan to expose Audrey's deceit and make her pay for her actions. We were determined to unveil the truth and ensure that Audrey pays for her actions. First off, she cheated on me by not letting me know that the baby she was carrying was not mine. Second, she was cheating on me with another guy named Eric for almost a year now. So I met the guy she was dating who was way younger than her. He was an upcoming model, and she told him that he needs to put himself out there to be successful, and she could help him with that. She told him that if he would cooperate with her, she could get him more modeling jobs and even acting gigs to help boost his career. He had no other choice but to agree to her proposal. She was the one who was quite demanding and always decided on where to meet and when to have sex. I understood that this was not a mutual relationship and that Audrey was taking advantage of the poor guy. I looped him into our revenge plans and he instantly agreed. He wanted to get rid of her as much as I wanted it. I felt bad for the guy, though, but I knew I couldn't go weak and carry out the revenge as planned. I had to be very careful of not letting my wife know that Molly and I were aware of the secret she had been hiding for all these years. I knew what I wanted to do. I told Audrey that her 45th birthday is going to be epic. I was planning a big surprise for her. She was still unaware of what was in store for her. As the days leading up to Audrey's birthday approached, I enlisted Molly's help in organizing the surprise party. We meticulously planned every detail, ensuring that Audrey remained clueless about our secret mission. I wanted it to be a day that she would never forget for her entire life. I started to dig into details to find out the real father. I had to go back almost 2 decades to solve this mystery. I was racking my brain to come up with possible suspects that could fit the bill. Molly suggested that we look at old pictures that could give us a head start. It was not a bad idea. I knew my baby girl was smart. We started looking at old pictures of Audrey around the time when she got pregnant with Molly. There was one picture that caught both our attention and cleared our doubts. There was a stark resemblance between Molly and the guy in the picture. I tried to get details of this guy from Audrey's friends from her previous magazine. They were able to provide some information about him, including his name and occupation. With this new lead, Molly and I decided to dig deeper into his background and try to track him down. We were determined to find out if he was indeed Molly's biological father. We got in touch with him and decided to meet with him. Molly was insistent that she would like to come along. I couldn't say no, as he could be her potential father, so I had no choice but to take her with me. We waited for the guy at a cafe, which was not one of the suburbs we visited, to make sure we didn't run into Audrey. As we waited, we saw a young man in his late 30s walking towards us. We did not even need a DNA test to confirm that he was Molly's potential father. The resemblance between them was striking, from their shared smile to the way they both walked with a slight bounce in their step. He introduced himself as Richard. I shook his hand and we both sat. He knew even before I spoke what this was about. He told me if I remembered anyone by the name Tiffany. It took me a while, and then I recalled something about a new colleague that Audrey had at the time when we were trying to get pregnant. Richard told me that Audrey had saved his name as Tiffany, so that I would not suspect anything going on between them. It was a very cunning move. As Richard revealed this, I felt a mix of shock and betrayal wash over me. It was hard to believe that Audrey had been hiding an affair right under my nose. So Audrey knew that I could be suspicious, and she had no intention of coming clean about her affair. This agitated me even further, and I was much more determined about making her pay. He told us that Audrey was the one who said that she would deal with the pregnancy and tell her husband that the baby was his. She asked him to keep quiet as she would be taking a break from work, so there was nothing Richard had to worry about. Richard told us that, after Molly was born, he tried to meet with Audrey, who blocked him and wanted nothing to do with him. He felt guilty about doing this to me, so he left his job and relocated to a different place. At least someone had a conscience, but unfortunately it was not Audrey. How I wished it to be Audrey. I would have forgiven her for the affair if she had come clean to me about it. I loved her way too much, and she was going to be giving birth to a baby, which we had been desperately waiting for. I wished she would trust me enough to have spoken the truth. Anyway, I asked him if he could help us plan something for Audrey. I told him that he could share anything that he had from the time he was goofing around with Audrey to help us confront her. She said it was a long time ago and that he might have to get back to us on it. I told him to take his time, but if he finds something, anything, even if it's small, would help us greatly. He agreed to look into it and try his best to help us as much as he could. We bid our farewell and started our plan. On the day of Audrey's birthday, we asked her to go to a hotel where we had booked a spa and beauty session for her to pamper herself. The party would be held in the evening in the ballroom of the same hotel. She could take her time in getting herself ready, as everything has already been organized for her, from clothes to makeup to jewelry, and she had nothing to worry about. She was so excited about it and left us to continue our preparations. She had no idea what she was going to be hit with, and I loved every bit of it. I had invited each and every person, even someone who barely knew her. I wanted no one on her side when all this was over. It was evening and guests started pouring in. Finally, the star of the evening, Audrey, had arrived. Everyone clapped as she walked through the crowd. After some time when the setup was ready, I gathered everyone's attention and called Audrey at the center. We set up a small platform for her to stand under the spotlight. I started with how I knew Audrey for the past 30 years, and how she changed my life since the day she met me, blah, blah, blah. I put up a projector which showed pictures of our journey together. Molly was in charge of what came up on the projector. It started with pictures of me and Audrey, then of the three of us together as a happy family. I knew by this time I had everyone's attention on both Audrey and the pictures. Now it was time to spice it up. I started talking about how Molly looked so different from me, and then came up on the projector Molly's DNA report, which showed that I was not her father. This led to loud gasps and whispers within the people attending the party. This was followed by pictures of her and Richard being intimate and lovey-dovey. This led to further commotion in the crowd. Then I showed everyone the pictures of Audrey and her current model boyfriend, who was just 21. This caused the entire crowd to go crazy. Audrey stood there frozen at the revelations that were coming to the surface. She was about to speak when her mother walked up to her and slapped her. She was in tears, and without waiting any further, I kicked her out of the party in front of all these people who either knew or cared about her. I had warned everyone against helping her with anything. She left the party and went to her young boyfriend's place. Eric tried to calm her down and took her in, just like we had decided. I asked him to take as many pictures and videos as he can of her and both of them together, doing all kinds of raunchy things. I knew where exactly I wanted to use it. She had an important meeting upcoming in her office, thanks to her colleagues who felt bad for me and shared this information with me. She was busy preparing for the presentation all week. It was the day when she was to present and speak in front of about 3,000 people from her office. She went to the stage and started presenting. She said that she put so much effort in making a video to make it simpler for people to understand. And she motioned to play the video where she is in her baby doll dress and slowly taking her clothes off. Her boyfriend was assigned the task of switching the video last night when she was asleep. She was shocked and horrified as the inappropriate video began playing instead. The audience gasped in disbelief, leaving her feeling utterly humiliated and desperately searching for a way to salvage the situation. She was desperately trying to stop the video from playing. She ran across the stage, quickly getting off the stage and trying to shut it down. She was immediately fired for ruining the reputation of their company and causing significant financial losses. Her actions not only damaged the trust of their clients, but also tarnished the company's image in the industry, making it difficult to recover from the negative impact she had created. She stormed off feeling humiliated and went to her boyfriend's house to confront him. He acted as if he knew nothing and he had no idea something like this would have happened. He blamed me and made her believe that maybe it was my doing, her cunning and jealous husband, who could not live with the fact that she left him for someone as handsome as him. He said that he knew exactly what he could do to make her feel better. She trusted him and followed him in his car. He drove her to an expensive hotel and booked a suite. She instantly believed that he was not behind it. They made love to each other and fell asleep. When she was sleeping, he took away all her credit cards and her cash. I asked him to leave her with nothing and strand her in an expensive place with nothing she could pay with. When she got up, she tried to look for him, and when she couldn't find him anywhere, she tried to call him. His phone was unreachable, and there was no sign of him anywhere. In the morning, the hotel staff were pounding on the hotel room that Audrey was in. When she opened it, they informed her that the credit card they used to book the room had bounced and she had to pay for a month's stay. She was flabbergasted that the room was booked under her name for a month. She said that she was not the one who booked, and she was waiting for her boyfriend to come back to clarify things. They gave her time till 10 a.m., or else she was to pay and leave. She tried calling her boyfriend, and there was no way of reaching him. At around 10 a.m., she was at the reception trying to explain to them that it was not her fault and she had no money to pay for the previous night. I walked in and stood beside her at the reception. I looked at her and gave her a sarcastic smile. Her face turned pale as she realized what had happened. She understood that her boyfriend had been in cahoots with me in all of this and that. She was now left with no husband, no daughter, no boyfriend, no job, and no friends. She begged me that it was a mistake and that she did not love her boyfriend and was just using him for sex. She was blinded by lust and wanted to get back with me. She got carried away, and was not thinking straight. She could not live without me and Molly. Molly said that she was ashamed that Audrey was her mother and wanted to have nothing to do with her. So I told her that she had fooled us enough, and she can leave us alone. I told her to get ready for the divorce trial in court. I had all the evidence to prove her infidelity and would be presenting it in court. What I did not tell her was that I am also trying to get the media involved so that they cover each and every detail of this court case for public humiliation. I would make her so famous for cheating that it would get difficult for her to even walk the roads without getting recognized and reminded of her wrongdoings. We had a joint bank account for our finances. I started noticing that our shared fund was declining rapidly. I blocked Audrey out of all the assets that we owned. I blocked her from using all the joint cards, accounts, and removed her name from all the properties. I already had access to her power of attorney, so it wasn't difficult for me. I wanted her to know that cheating on me and hiding the truth about Molly was something she had to pay for. I also decided to seek legal advice and consult a divorce attorney to protect my rights and ensure that I am granted Molly's custody. It was important for me to take the necessary steps to safeguard my financial stability and hold Audrey accountable for her actions. So this is all that I had done to my wife, who not only cheated me, but also my daughter all her life. I know some of you might not agree with what I had done, but I could not let her walk away after ruining all of lives. I would like you guys to share any similar experiences that you had and how you dealt with it. I would also like your support in your comments on how to handle and deal with my teenage daughter going forward. I want to be there for her as much as possible and not let her feel that I would ever abandon her like her mother. I will keep you guys updated on the divorce trial and how things turn out to be. Trust me, I will make sure that it gets messy and humiliating for her. Thank you all for being with me so far. Update. I was able to get a few friends to help me get in touch with a few reporters to cover the divorce trial. As the trial proceeded, my lawyer showed the evidence of Audrey's infidelity not only during Molly's birth, but also for the past 1 year. We had Richard and Eric take the stand and accept that they had in fact been involved with Audrey in a romantic relationship. Their testimonies were crucial in establishing Audrey's pattern of infidelity, strengthening our case against her. The courtroom was filled with tension as the truth unfolded, leaving Audrey with little room to defend herself against the mounting evidence. When Molly was called to the stand to decide who she would like to take custody of Molly, she, without waiting for a second, stated that she wanted to live with me. She told the judges that I had always been there for her more than her mother. She did not care if I was not her biological father, as I loved her as my own. Listening to this brought tears in my eyes, and I knew that the bond I shared with Molly was thicker than that of blood. Audrey tried to defend herself, stating that she was her biological mother, and it was only right for Molly to stay with her. She also demanded a hefty amount in child support from me once Molly started living with her. She lied that Molly was a very demanding child and that she would get upset if her demands were not met. After careful deliberation, the judge ruled in favor of me winning Molly's custody. I made sure that this was the hot topic in all of the newspapers, with Audrey's best picture posted on each and every one of them. I wanted her to face all the humiliation that she could for using Molly just to get some money from me. She kept reaching new lows, which I never imagined was possible. In all this while, her lawyer had left her side, so she was defending herself as she could not afford a lawyer. No PR company or magazine wanted to hire her after her face was plastered on every tabloid. She was doomed for life. Even the models that she was able to blackmail previously had left her side and cornered themselves from her. Seeing her in this state, I couldn't help but feel a mix of pity and satisfaction. It was a stark reminder that karma always finds its way back to those who manipulate and deceive others. After the trial was over, Molly and I had decided to move on from Audrey. We decided to renovate our house and throw away anything that belonged to Audrey. We wanted nothing to do with her. Even a single thing that reminded us of her needs to be out of the door. I was happy to see that Molly did not need a mother or mother's love and validation anymore. She was growing up to be an independent and confident woman who did not need anyone to make her feel loved. Seeing Molly gave me the courage to gather myself from all the events that were not less than a roller coaster ride in my life. I have now decided to focus on myself and be the best father that I can be for Molly.
The sun was already starting to set as I stood by the huge window of my office, overlooking the bustling city below. Today had been a whirlwind. 25 years I'd been with this company, pouring every ounce of my dedication and sweat into my work. And today, it was going to pay off. I glanced down at the invitation lying on my desk. It was a sleek card embossed with golden letters. John Miller, in recognition of 25 years of exemplary service, we are honored to present you with the Employee of the Quarter Century Award. Quarter century. Sounds fancy, doesn't it? A chuckle escaped my lips. I never thought I'd be at a job long enough to get such an award. My fingers lightly traced the edge of the card. I hadn't told Lisa yet. I wanted to surprise her. I imagined the proud look in her eyes, the way she'd hug me tight, whispering in my ear, "I always knew you were the best." We'd been through thick and thin, from the time when we could barely afford rent to now, living comfortably in our dream home. This award was as much hers as it was mine. A buzz from my phone pulled me out of my daydream. It was a reminder for the rehearsal for tomorrow's ceremony. "Can't be late for that," I murmured to myself, quickly gathering my things. The office was mostly empty by now. A few colleagues waved at me as I made my way out, congratulating me for my big day tomorrow. I smiled, nodding in appreciation. It felt good, this recognition. It felt earned. The drive home was smooth. Traffic was lighter than usual, and I found myself humming along to the radio. My plan was simple. Get home, tell Lisa about the award, maybe even go out for a celebratory dinner. I'd been so wrapped up in work lately that we hadn't had much time together, just the two of us. As I turned into our street, something odd caught my attention. A car. Not just any car, but one that I recognized. Sleek, silver, with tinted windows, Mr. Gray's car, my boss's car. Why would he be here? I pondered aloud. It wasn't like him to make house calls, and I definitely hadn't invited him over. Parking my car, I decided to check our home security system via my phone. An uneasy feeling settled in my stomach when I saw that the cameras were off. Odd, I thought. Lisa never turns them off. Before entering the house, a memory flashed. I recalled an old video system I'd set up when we first moved in. It was more for fun than anything else, a hobby I picked up during one of my business trips. I decided to check it before going in. With every second, my heart pounded louder in my chest. Why was I so nervous? What was I expecting to find? I sat in my car, nervously fidgeting with the old laptop I'd kept in the trunk. Booting it up, I opened the video files from the old security system. My hands were clammy, my mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. The first few clips seemed normal. Lisa was in the garden, tending to her roses, her favorite pastime. It was calming to see her so engrossed in her world. But then the timestamp showed the hour when I was deep in a meeting. Mr. Gray's car pulled into our driveway. He stepped out, looking around before heading to the front door. Lisa greeted him, not with the cordial nod you'd give a colleague of your husband, but with a warm embrace. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. They moved into the living room. Their conversation was muted, but their body language spoke volumes. They laughed. They shared a bottle of wine, the same wine Lisa and I had been saving for a special occasion. At one point, they danced, her head resting on his shoulder, both lost in the music and in each other. It felt as though someone had punched me in the gut. This wasn't just a casual visit. This was intimate, personal. I closed the laptop abruptly, gasping for air. My mind refused to accept what my eyes had just seen. I drove aimlessly for what felt like hours, trying to process everything. Every memory, every sweet moment shared with Lisa was now tainted with doubt. Was our entire marriage a lie, or had something changed along the way? Seeking some solitude, I ended up at a small park we used to visit when we were younger. It was our spot, a place where we shared dreams, made plans, and promised to be each other's forever. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sitting on a bench, I tried to recall any signs, any hints that might have indicated Lisa's change of heart. But all I remembered were the good times. Sure, we had our disagreements, but what couple didn't? Nothing that would warrant this kind of betrayal. My phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. "Hey love, where are you? I made your favorite for dinner. Hope you'll be home soon." I stared at the message, feeling a strange mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. How could she act so normal? Did she think I wouldn't find out? Or did she not care? Tears threatened to spill, but I held them back. I needed to think, to plan my next move. I couldn't confront her without evidence, and I certainly didn't want to make a scene. I needed answers, but first, I needed to gather my thoughts. The sun was barely out, casting a dim golden hue over the city as I started my day. I hadn't slept much. Every time I closed my eyes, the images of Lisa and Mr. Gray replayed in my mind. It was torture. As I got into my car and drove to the office, I could feel a deep sense of unease. Every red light, every pedestrian seemed like an obstacle, delaying me from finding some answers to the chaos that had become my life. I had always taken pride in my office, a corner spot with a panoramic view of the city. But today, the skyline, usually a source of inspiration, felt mocking. Instead of focusing on work, I found myself watching the people down below, wondering how many of them carried secrets of their own. When lunchtime rolled around, I knew I couldn't face the office canteen. I texted Roger, "Need to talk, usual spot in 20?" His reply was instant, "Be there." Our usual spot was a small, out-of-the-way cafe where we'd shared countless conversations over the years. It was private, away from prying eyes and eavesdropping ears. As I sat waiting for Roger, the aroma of fresh coffee beans being ground felt oddly comforting. When Roger arrived, his face was lined with concern. "You look like hell," he said, ordering us both a coffee. Taking a deep breath, I relayed the events of the previous evening. He listened intently, only interrupting to ask clarifying questions. Once I finished, he took a long sip of his coffee, seemingly collecting his thoughts. "Before you confront Lisa," he finally said, "you need undeniable evidence, something she can't refute." I nodded, recalling the grainy security footage. "But how?" He hesitated for a moment. "A private investigator. It's the best shot we've got." The idea seemed drastic, straight out of a detective novel, but I was desperate. Roger quickly jotted down a number. "Her name's Clara. She's discreet and the best in the business. Call her." With Roger's encouragement, I dialed Clara that evening. She had a calm, collected voice that instantly put me at ease. After explaining my situation, she agreed to take on the case. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. Clara was in constant touch, updating me on her findings. She tracked Lisa's movements, her meetings with Mr. Gray, and even their conversations. Each revelation was like a dagger to my heart. However, one evening, as I was poring over some reports, my phone buzzed with a message from Clara. "Urgent meeting needed. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. My office." The weight in my chest grew heavier. What had she found? I arrived at Clara's office promptly at 9 a.m. The air was thick with anticipation. Her office was located in a nondescript building, ensuring her clients' utmost privacy. The room itself was dimly lit, with walls adorned with various awards and certifications. However, one particular wall caught my attention. It was covered in photos and strings connecting various clues, like a scene from a detective film. Clara, a tall woman with sharp features and an even sharper mind, gestured for me to sit. Without wasting any time, she turned on a projector. The screen lit up with images of Lisa and Mr. Gray, some of them in places I recognized, like our favorite restaurant and the park where we had our first date. She began narrating her findings. "Over the past few days, I've observed a pattern. They meet up at least 3 times a week. It's not just casual encounters, John. I've recorded some of their conversations." She played an audio clip. Hearing Lisa's voice was painful, but what was more painful were the words she spoke, her intimate tone with Mr. Gray, and the laughter they shared. They discussed future plans, vacations, and even mused about a world where they didn't have to hide. I felt a rush of emotions: anger, sadness, disbelief. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "From what I've gathered, it's been at least a year," Clara responded. "A year. A whole year of deception." I struggled to process it all. "Did you find anything on what they're planning next?" Clara hesitated for a moment before continuing. "There's an upcoming business trip. Both Lisa and Mr. Gray are booked for it, but the peculiar thing is, they've booked a single room." It felt like the room was closing in on me. Clara handed me a folder containing all the evidence, photos, recordings, and even some of their message exchanges. "You deserve to know the truth, John. I'm sorry it had to be this way." I nodded, barely holding back tears. "Thank you, Clara." As I left her office, the reality of it all sank in. I had to confront Lisa, but the thought of facing her was daunting. How do you confront someone you've loved and trusted for over 2 decades? I drove around the city, lost in thought. Nightfall approached, and the city lights seemed to blur together. I pulled over, gazing at the river. The shimmering water reflected my own tumultuous emotions. Taking a deep breath, I picked up my phone and dialed Lisa's number. It was time for answers. The ringing of the phone seemed to last an eternity. When Lisa finally picked up, her voice was light, unsuspecting. "Hey John, how was your day?" Hearing her voice brought a flood of memories, our wedding, vacations, shared laughter, and dreams for the future. But now, it all seemed tainted. I took a deep breath to steady myself. "Lisa, we need to talk. Can you come home now?" There was a pause. She must have sensed the urgency in my voice. "All right, I'm on my way." The waiting was torturous. Every tick of the clock felt like an echo in the vast emptiness of our home. The door creaked open, and Lisa walked in, concern evident on her face. "John, what's going on?" I spread out the evidence Clara had given me on the table. The photos, the audio recordings, the messages. Lisa's face turned pale as she took in the undeniable truth before her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she began. "John, But I raised my hand to stop her. "Just tell me why, Lisa. After all these years, why?" She looked down, struggling to find her words. It started innocently. Business meetings turned into lunches and then dinners. We found comfort in each other's company. I never meant for it to go this far, John. But over time, the line between friendship and something more blurred. I am so sorry. I could feel my heart shattering, but a strange calmness settled over me. We built a life together, Lisa. Shared dreams, made promises, and you threw it all away for a fleeting moment of happiness. She sobbed. "I know I messed up. I know there's no excuse for what I did. I wish I could turn back time. But some things, once broken, can't be fixed. The trust that was the foundation of our relationship had crumbled. Lisa, I think we need to take some time apart. I need to process this, heal, and decide what's next." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand, John. I'll move out for a while." The following days were a blur. Lisa moved in with her sister, and I was left in our home, surrounded by memories of better times. Friends and family reached out, offering their support, but the loneliness was overwhelming. I decided to sell our home and start afresh. With every item I packed, I let go of a piece of the past. It was painful but necessary. I realized that sometimes the hardest part of moving on is accepting that the other person already did. The finality of signing the divorce papers was heart-wrenching, but it also marked a new beginning. I embarked on a journey of self-discovery, traveling and meeting new people. And though the pain of betrayal never truly goes away, in time, it becomes a scar. A reminder of battles fought and lessons learned. After everything that's unfolded, I find myself standing at a fork in the road. The weight of the decision I need to make feels like a stone in my chest. You see, some say love is forgiving, and that time can mend the deepest of wounds. Others argue that certain betrayals are unforgivable, leaving scars that never truly heal. My heart still aches when I think of Jane. The love, memories, and years we shared can't simply be erased. I sometimes wonder if we can rebuild, start anew, and perhaps find a way back to each other. But then, the pain of her betrayal, the hurt I felt that day when I watched that footage, hits me like a tidal wave. You, dear viewer, have been with me through this tumultuous journey, witnessing every raw emotion and every twist and turn. And so, I ask you, what do you think? Should I consider giving Jane a second chance, believing in the power of love and forgiveness? Or do you think what she did was utterly unacceptable, a violation that no amount of time or remorse can mend? I eagerly await your thoughts. Your insight might just be the beacon of light I need in this storm.